With the Islamic Republic of Iran aggressively expanding its military presence in Syria, the Golan Heights has become indispensable to Israel's future security and prosperity. The Golan Heights is a mountainous volcanic plateau located at the junction of four countries. It is bordered by Israel's Hula Valley to the west, Lebanon to the north, the Yarmouk River in Jordan to the south, and Syria to the east. Not only does the Golan Heights encompass the strategic high ground along a large swath of Israel's northern border, it literally forms the eastern coastline of one of Israel's primary water sources, the Sea of Galilee. The area was captured by Israel from Syria in the 1967 Six-Day War. Since that time, many Arab governments, Western politicians, and those within academia and the media have distorted the realities of the conflict in an effort to portray Israel as a land-grabbing aggressor. But this is simply not the case, and the historical facts bear this out. It has become commonplace for Israel's detractors to refer to this region as the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. Since 1967, this strategic high ground has remained a major point of contention and embarrassment for the Syrian government. Israel officially annexed approximately 580 square miles of the region in 1981. Immediately, the annexation was vigorously opposed by the United Nations, which then passed a resolution condemning the act, declaring it null and void. Both Israel and Syria, through the years, have sought an agreement to resolve the territorial dispute. Each time, Israel hoped for a promise of real and lasting peace from the Syrians in exchange for land. Shockingly, even after Israel saw Hamas sweep into power and take over the Gaza Strip subsequent to Israel's withdrawal from the Palestinian enclave in 2005, Israeli leaders still continued to pursue a land for peace deal with Syria. According to media reports, in 2010, Israel engaged in secret talks with Syria in the hope of obtaining peace by giving back the Golan Heights and returning to her 1967 borders. Since that time, however, it has become clearer to Israel's leadership and her people that giving back the Golan to Syria is no longer a viable option. The fallout from the ongoing war in Syria, the continuing hostility of the Syrian government toward Israel, and the military advances Iran is making in Syria toward Israel's northern border make it obvious that the Golan Heights has become indispensable to Israel's future security and prosperity. In light of this reality, U.S. President Donald Trump recently stunned the world by issuing an executive order stating the United States officially recognizes Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights. Until his declaration, no nation on earth had stood with Israel on her Golan Heights annexation. Iran's radical Islamist regime has greatly expanded its sphere of influence in Iraq and Syria in the aftermath of their respective wars. And it continues to galvanize power through back-channel financing of terror networks and providing a steady flow of short and medium-range weaponry to terrorist proxy groups such as Hamas in Gaza along Israel's southern border and Hezbollah in Lebanon along Israel's northern border. Make no mistake, Iran, which was historically known as Persia before changing its name in 1935, is insidiously surrounding Israel with powerful military assets for the intended purpose of annihilating the Jewish state. Iran's radical Shiite leaders have made no secret of their desire to wipe Israel off the map, referring to it as a cancerous tumor. These realities have made Israel's high ground, the Golan Heights, an indispensable asset for obvious geographic reasons. But there are other issues inseparably linked to this strategic region that are crucial to Israel's security and future prosperity, and which may play a significant role as a catalyst for the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. One issue is related to water. Some geopolitical experts have written about the fact that the next major war in the Middle East may be fought over water. With explosive population growth in the region, there is an increasing scarcity of this vital resource. The Golan Heights accounts for 1/3 of Israel's water supply. As the snows melt on Mount Hermon at the northernmost point in the Golan, they form 3 tributaries that feed the Jordan River. If these were cut off or diverted away from Israel, as the Arab League attempted to do in 1964, it could devastate Israel and the entire Jordan Valley, from the Sea of Galilee to the Dead Sea. A second issue concerns credible sources indicating that Israel has discovered large quantities of oil in the Golan Range, just to the northeast of the Sea of Galilee. In combination with Israel's natural gas discoveries off its northern Mediterranean coast, this would certainly expand Israel's growing position as a significant player in the field of energy. If Israel has indeed made a commercially viable discovery of oil in the Golan, it might not simply be a game changer for Israel's economy, it might also provide the impetus for a hostile invasion from the north at some point in the future. In a recent Flashpoint report entitled "The East Med Pipeline, Will It Be a Catalyst for the Fulfillment of Bible Prophecy?", I explored the possible connection of Israel's recent energy discoveries to ancient biblical prophecies that describe a last days attack on Israel from the north. What has become alarmingly clear is that Iran's arc of influence has spread to Israel's northern doorstep. The Islamic Shiite nation has extended its power and influence from its borders westward to the capitals of Baghdad, Damascus, and Beirut. With ISIS losing most of its territory in northern Iraq, and with the surprising political survival of Iran's ally in Syria, President Bashar al-Assad, the Islamic Republic now has a direct path to the Mediterranean Sea and to Israel's northern borders through Syria and Lebanon. But how did Israel finally gain control of this strategic plateau called the Golan Heights that is so crucial to her defense against Iran today? The backstory is critically important to understand. The truth is that Israel captured the Golan in a war she didn't want. The remarkable victories Israel realized in the 1967 Six-Day War seem almost implausible. Were it not for the sovereign hand of God, the outcome would have been tragically different. The riveting details of this brief war read like a modern-day novel reminiscent of the ancient battle pitting David against Goliath. In reality, this familiar story is an apt comparison. Just as it was in the biblical conflict between Israel and the Philistines, Israel was the underdog. A mere 19 years earlier, the nation had been miraculously reborn after being dispersed in exile for nearly 2,000 years. Now, the Jewish people were back in their historic homeland. And in 1948, immediately after Israel declared her independence, 6 Arab countries attacked the fledgling nation in an attempt to extinguish her flame, just as it began to flicker once again after enduring the darkness of Hitler's Holocaust. Israel, however, emerged victorious in 1948. Israel again had to go to war in 1956, this time allied with Britain and France to free the strategic Suez Canal from the nationalist clutches of Egypt. By the end of the Suez conflict, Israel had also secured a pledge from the United States that Egypt would no longer be permitted to block Israeli shipping on the Red Sea without reprisal. During the 6 previous years, Egypt had put a stranglehold on Israel by attempting to starve the nation of oil. Without these shipments, Israel would not have been able to defend itself against an Egyptian attack. And then, in 1967, Israel faced an even larger threat from General Nasser of Egypt. In the days before the war, Nasser again blockaded the Straits of Tiran at Israel's entrance to the Red Sea, essentially choking off Israel and her port of Eilat. At the same time, Egypt amassed 100,000 soldiers along its Sinai border with Israel. Nasser's offensive also came through Egyptian newspapers and television, with bombastic threats to exterminate the Jewish state. Concurrently, Jordan and Syria, under the strong-arm influence of Egypt, also moved hundreds of tanks and tens of thousands of soldiers to their respective borders with Israel. Knowing they were about to be attacked on 3 fronts, by Egypt from the Sinai, Jordan from the West Bank, and Syria from the Golan Heights, Israel realized it must strike preemptively to have any chance of national survival. In a brilliant but risky calculation, Israel sent out her young fighter pilots over the Mediterranean Sea, a few at a time, from various Israeli air bases. They flew low to evade Egypt's Russian-built radar and observe strict air silence. Once in position, they fanned out and turned south toward Egypt, where they successfully destroyed, in a matter of hours, 2/3 of the Egyptian Air Force's fighter jets, while they were still on the ground. This dramatically turned the tide in Israel's favor over the ensuing days and significantly reduced the length of the war. As a result, Israel gained the upper hand in its combat with Egypt in the Sinai. And after Jordan and Syria jumped into the war during the next few days, Israel was able to repel their advances, turn the tide, and go on the offensive. In only 6 days, Israel miraculously took the entire Sinai Peninsula from Egypt, East Jerusalem, the Temple Mount, and the West Bank from Jordan, and the Golan Heights from Syria. Time does not permit a fuller explanation of the incredible stories related to the conflict, but the details are truly extraordinary, even miraculous. God's hand was obviously at work on behalf of Israel during the war. It was all a part of His ultimate plan and purpose for His covenant people. Today, the casual news observer who is unaware of the historical realities of the region, or others such as the political peacenik who makes idealistic pronouncements from afar, argue that Israel must relinquish control over what was formerly Syrian territory. But allow me in closing to offer this perspective. For anyone who has seen the Golan Heights with their own eyes, traversed its scenic passes, ascended its mountainous plateau, waded through its rushing freshwater streams, and been captivated by its commanding views of the surrounding topography, it would seem completely irrational to believe Israel could ever have safe, secure, and defensible borders with a historically hostile enemy like Syria in possession of this piece of real estate. History supports this opinion. When Syria controlled the Golan Heights, they used it as a means of intimidation against the Jewish people living peacefully in northern Israel. The Syrians fortified it with concrete trenches, underground bunkers, barbed wire, and thousands of landmines. From its fortifications, they terrorized Israeli farm communities in the valleys below. From its peaks, they indiscriminately rained missiles down upon Israeli towns. Along its streams of melting snow, they attempted to divert desperately needed water away from the Jordan River, the Sea of Galilee, and from Israeli citizens. This was the Golan Heights under Syrian control. Today, under Israel's sovereign control, the Golan Heights has blossomed through agriculture, recreation, and tourism. But it has also become an indispensable asset to Israel's security and possibly to its future prosperity. Until recently, the people of Israel stood there alone. Today, the United States of America stands with them. Share this video with a friend. And if you're not currently signed up to receive our free ZH Upfront emails, I strongly encourage you to do so. Simply go to our website, www.zionshope.org, and sign up for ZH Upfront. We won't bombard you with things you don't want. You'll receive Flashpoint geoprophecy reports like this one, ministry updates, plus informative Bible teaching videos from Zion's Hope sent direct to your inbox. You won't hear this kind of biblical perspective and in-depth geoprophetic insight from the mainstream media. So I strongly encourage you to sign up today for ZH Upfront emails. And please remember that we depend on the generous support of viewers like you to make these presentations possible. Your donation, whether large or small, is vital and provides the means for us to continue bringing these important truths to light. Thanks for standing with us.